everyone, it's Hailey, and today I wanted to share some of my summer book recommendations. Summer is officially here. The past couple of days have honestly been kind of gross where I live, so not exactly in the summer mood. However, I have been like enjoying the pool and just living my best life, honestly. I didn't realize what a serotonin boost a pool would be. Unexpected, but very welcome. Anyways, if you are like me and you're just trying to have a book girl summer or just a book person summer, I have some books to recommend that I think are going to help you get there. Obviously, we're kind of focusing on those like summer feels, the vibes. We've got some romances, we've got just some light and fluffy reads, a little bit of everything, but I think that these are all really great books. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first we have Where the Rhythm Takes You by Sarah Doss. I think this is such a fun read and it is perfect for summertime because it is actually set on a resort, and it's actually set on a resort on Tobago. So the culture of Trinidad and Tobago is a main topic of this book, and the main character, her family actually owns this resort and she's lived there her entire life, and she used to live there with her best friend, but then he moved away and he actually ended up becoming pretty famous. So now he has returned to the resort and she is having to like lead him around, give him a tour with all of his also very famous friends. And she also is in the process of grieving her mother. Her mother died quite recently and she's been having a hard time getting over that, especially because where she lives is somewhere that reminds her, like everything reminds her of her mother. So it's been a really hard time for her, and now she has this added conflict of someone who they didn't used to just be friends, they actually used to date as well. So she was left heartbroken by him and she's having a hard time like healing from all of that. And now that he's here again, it's obviously just a lot happening and a lot of difficulties too. I think the setting is really the main thing that screams summer with this one for me, but I also felt like it was a really good book with a solid message to it. I like the fact that it wasn't really what I was expecting. It's not really your typical romance. I would even hesitate to call this one a romance at all. I think that this one is more a coming of age story, a very transformative time for the main character, and I think the author did a fantastic job of displaying that. Oh my god, I didn't even know that. I literally didn't even know that. I was just reading the blurb by Ivy Zoboy, and she said that it's an Austen remix, and I was like, what? But it does say right on the bottom, inspired by Jane Austen's Persuasion. I haven't read Persuasion yet, so that's probably why I didn't realize, but how interesting. I did not know that, and I've been recommending this book for like at least a year now. Next is a book that by this point I'm sure you are sick of hearing about, but I'm not going to stop talking about it, and that is Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. This is such a great, fantastic, enjoyable romance read. It is exactly what I want on a hot summer's day when I'm like lounging by the beach, wherever. I just want to pick up a book like this and have a mindless read, and that's exactly what it is. It is so sweet and so fluffy and just everything that I want and more. So this is kind of like The Princess Diaries, because you have a main character who she has this estranged father that she's never met, and she ends up finding out that her father is actually the crown prince of Japan. So she is a princess and she ends up going to Tokyo to learn more about her culture, learn more about like her position as a princess, and she ends up being in the eye of the press and everything and has to deal with that. Like there's obviously a lot of new things that she's dealing with, but she also has a bodyguard who she's dealing with, and like obviously we know where that's going because this is definitely a really romantic book. So the second book came out this year and I'm dying to read it, but if you haven't picked up the series yet, oh my goodness, it is so good and entirely worth the read. Which actually reminds me that also Royals and Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins are also royal reads, and they are really good, light and fluffy and cute for summertime. Next is actually a fantasy, and that is In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. I think that this one is kind of the ultimate summer fantasy to me because it is so nautical. It's set very much surrounding the sea, and there are just a lot of aspects of it that I wasn't expecting. I'm sorry, I keep on tripping over my words, but that's just how my day has been going, and I'm not even going back to correct myself because I'm too tired to. But it just is like a queer pirate pirate story, but it also is dealing with mermaids. It's super interesting and not at all what I expected from it. So it's described as the Pirates of the Caribbean meets the Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which I think is actually a pretty accurate description. In it, you're following a young prince who relies on a mysterious stranger to save him when he ends up getting kidnapped during his coming of age tour. So it's a little mix of fantasy, but also a little mix of historical. Like, it definitely has those vibes to it, but overall it was just such a fast and fun fantasy read, and I think it definitely is great for the summertime. Next is You Have a Match by Emma Lord. I do admittedly prefer Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, but I think that if you're looking for more of a summery read, then this one is a great one to go with. I mean, obviously, like, it doesn't really matter when you read things, but I like to read things around a certain time of year. I love a good theme. So this is actually set at a summer camp, which is why I say that it's a really great read for summer, because I haven't read many books that are set at a camp particularly, and I think that this one is a good one to start with. So it follows a character who ends up taking this DNA test, and the character is kind of like rebellious. She takes this DNA test and ends up finding out that she actually has a sister that she didn't know about. She has a half sister who actually is like Instagram famous. So she ends up going to this camp where her half sister is working, and she meets her half sister and everything, and obviously there's quite a bit of drama that ensues from that. It was definitely a very different sort of read for me because the main character is more of the rebellious sort and not really like following the rules and is kind of acting out, and I felt like that was something that I haven't really read very many books like that, and her sister is the total opposite. But the setting of camp is very prevalent throughout the story, and that definitely makes it have all of the summer vibes to me. So it's about friends and family, and definitely a coming of age story for the main characters, but all set against the backdrop of a really fun summer camp. Next is Paris is Always a Good Idea by Jen McKinley. I feel like this is a really good summer read because travel is definitely a main topic of it, and if you like aren't going anywhere during the summer, like I hadn't been the past 2 years, this year I'm going to California, which is exciting, and there's a lot of things going on, but for most of my life I wasn't going anywhere during the summertime. So I loved reading books that would, like, whenever I haven't been able to go anywhere, I love reading books that will transport me somewhere. And this book is about a girl who has lost her mother, and she has been struggling with the grief of that for a very long time. So in order to try and like reclaim her life and get things back on track, she ends up going back on this European trip that she was on when she actually found out that her mother was sick. So she goes to 3 different places, and there are actually 3 different guys that she's seeing if like they were the one for her, but she was just so distracted and everything went wrong. She's basically giving it all a second chance. But this actually ends up being an enemies to lovers story. It definitely went ways I wasn't expecting it to, but I really, really loved it. And if you are looking to go on a little European adventure vacation this summer, then this book is a great way to do that. Speaking of, actually, next is another book with travel, and that is One True Loves by Elise Bryant. I read this book quite recently, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I didn't really know what to expect from it, but it definitely like exceeded my expectations. So this book follows a girl who is in that transformative transitional period in between high school and university, and she is struggling because everyone wants her to essentially pigeonhole herself into one artistic thing that she likes. She has always, like, she went to an artistic school and she's always kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything, but now, well, that used to be seen as an asset, it's now, well, you need to choose one thing to major in. So she chose art history, but she's not really sure about it, and her parents end up finding that out, and they are making her make the decision if like that's actually what she wants to study. But she's going on this Mediterranean cruise for her graduation with her family and everything, and by the end of that cruise she has to have made that decision and let her parents know what she actually wants to do with her life. So obviously a lot of pressure on this character, but all the while she is like exploring Mediterranean Europe and everything, and it's really beautiful, and you also have a fun little romance here. But mostly I think the thing that stuck out for me was the transformation of the main character and all the things that she was struggling with deciding on. I think that's definitely something that anyone in high school can relate to, anyone who has just graduated high school, like wherever you might be, you're thinking about what you want to do with your life, and this book does a great job of exploring that and how there's not really one right answer. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it has a great message, and it does also have those fun summer vibes at the same time. I feel like I couldn't talk about summer reads without talking about Emily Henry. Honestly, I couldn't pick one book. I could not pick one book because I love all of these books. She's like one of my favorite authors of all time, but also all of these have really great summer vibes, but like in a different way. I would say that the one that has the least summer vibes is maybe the most recent, and that would be Book Lovers, but at the same time, it still does, you know? All of these books are taking place somewhere that's like different for the main characters. So People We Meet on Vacation is very much like a traveling book. The main character is a travel writer. It's friends to lovers. It's absolutely amazing. And then Beach Read is set on a cabin, in a cabin on Michigan, on Lake Michigan, I think is where it is, or is it in Michigan? I can't really remember, but still, you know, it's a beach read. Like, all of these books have just the absolute most immaculate summer vibes, honestly. Book Lovers even is set somewhere different because it's set in this small town that the character and her sister go to. Like, these are just, if you're going to read one summery read, then definitely pick one by Emily Henry because she does it like no other, and it's just great. I also feel like I should mention Jenna Evans Welch, who is the author of the Love and Gelato or the Love and series, which actually I didn't know, but I believe this is being adapted, so that's really cool. I think that could be very great. But Love and Gelato, the first book, is set in Italy, so it's once again a character who's lost her mother. I don't know why that seems to be a theme with a lot of these books, but she's dealing with that grief and goes to Italy where her mother did an exchange student sort of thing, and she's trying to find who her father is actually. So it's definitely really emotional. All of her books have a little bit of an emotional aspect to them, but in a different way. Love and Luck is the second one, and that is set in Ireland, and that one's also really enjoyable, and you have weddings, Irish coast, lots of fun. And then the final book is Love and, what's it called? Love and, why can't I think of what it's called? Love and Olives, I'm sorry. So that one's set in Greece, and it's a character whose father is like really obsessed with Atlantis. She's lost connection with him, and it's kind of exploring that complicated relationship. So I think these are really great transportive, escapist, but also emotional summer reads. Once again, a like ultimate summer read is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I love Christina Lauren. You guys know that by now. And The Unhoneymooners I did enjoy, but it's not my favorite. But I do think that it is like the most summery by them because it's actually set in Hawaii, and it's enemies to lovers. You're following two characters who end up having to go, it's enemies to lovers and fake dating, which is like my favorite, but they end up having to go and pretend to be a newly married couple so then they can take advantage of the honeymooners pack that their sister and, is it the brother? The sister and the brother ended up winning. So it's a character who's like never lucky, and then she ends up going here, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. You get all the like honeymoon vibes, all of the tropical vibes. It's amazing. And finally is the Loose Ends List by Carrie Firestone. This is a really great, but once again, sad. I swear not all of these are sad, and I'm not just going for sad, but I do tend to gravitate toward contemporaries that have a little bit of a sadness to them a lot of the times. But this one is about a character who is going with her family, like her very out of control family, on this cruise. And this cruise is actually because her grandmother is dying, so it's like this last cruise and last time with her family. And it's definitely very sad because of that. She's super close with her grandmother, but the character is like, this has a romance that I wasn't a huge fan of, but it didn't take away from the story overall. I just could have done without it, but the cruise setting was really interesting. It was just a very unique book, unlike anything I've ever really read before, to be honest. Okay, so those are all of the summer book recommendations that I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you were able to find something new that maybe you hadn't heard of before, and something you were able to add to your TBR or whatever. I hope that you found a book here. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another new one soon. Bye!